Hello, this is Reginald Jackson, and I'm here to present the Cybersecurity Framework presentation. Grand Canyon University, Class CYB 650-500, Innovation in Security Frameworks. The objectives for this assignment are align the selected organization to either NIST or the ISO IEC 27001 cybersecurity frameworks, identify specific regulatory requirements that the organization must comply with, identify and prioritize organizational efforts and business needs, identify individual elements of cybersecurity such as threats and vulnerabilities and how to manage them, and to describe how the organization incorporates privacy principles as related to data collection, disclosure, and retention. Lastly, describe the impact of legal regulatory standards on a given system. For this exercise, we were allotted one of three organizations: JAM Inc., Augusta Medical Hospital, or Nook Inc. My selection was Nook Inc. Who is Nook Inc.? Nook Inc. is a software application development company. Corporate headquarters is located in Detroit, Michigan, in proximity of the American Big Three automakers. Nook Inc.'s headquarters has more than 500 employees. Over the last 3 years, the organization has been researching and developing autonomous vehicle software technology. Nook Inc. is a publicly traded organization listed on the NASDAQ Stock Exchange. The organization is preparing to expand its operation on a global scale. The first location outside of the United States will be Munich, Germany. It is the first international Nook Inc. location located near Bavaria Motorworks, which is BMW. Nook Inc. is planning significant upgrades to the organization's enterprise network and information systems. They're going to upgrade, the upgrades will focus on Nook Inc.'s need to support and provide for AI, ML, or artificial intelligence, machine language, Internet of Things, and data analytics for on-premise and remote users. Corporate and developers' information systems should be segmented with data loss capabilities. Now we're going to look at the framework alignment for the National Institute of Standards and Technology Cybersecurity Framework. The National Institute of Standards and Technology has created the NIST Cybersecurity Framework, or the CSF, which is a set of recommendations and best practices for handling cybersecurity risk. The framework is made to aid organizations of all shapes and sizes in understanding and controlling their cybersecurity threats. It is set up around five fundamental tasks of identification, protection, detection, response, and recovery. The underlying categories and subcategories that support these functions give more in-depth understanding of these actions required to put the framework into practice. The CSF is designed to be adaptive, flexible, and organizations can use it as a springboard for creating their own cybersecurity strategy. This slide is the framework alignment continuation. There are 7 steps to implementing the framework. The first is prioritize and scope, which what we have to do there is we have to prior to implementing the framework, an organization must first determine its cybersecurity related business or mission objectives and strategic priorities. They must review and understand the core functions: identify, protect, detect, respond, and recover of the CFS. The framework is customized and to accommodate organizational processes. Uh, Next, we have organizational orientation, system, resources, and risk management strategies that fall under the purview of the efforts are identified by an organization. This contains the most recent organizational best practices and standards, as well as other components that may help the organization accomplish its its critical infrastructure and business goals for cybersecurity risk management. Next, we have create an organizational current profile by identifying which categories and subcategories outcomes from the framework core are currently being achieved. The organization creates a current profile. The goal of determining the current profile is to understand how the organization's practices relate to the category, subcategory outcomes, and the degree to which the outcomes are accomplished by the framework. Then we have to conduct a risk assessment to determine the possibility of the cybersecurity event and the potential effects on the organization. The organization surveys its operational environment to enable a thorough understanding of the likelihood and effect of cybersecurity incidents. The company must take into account new risks, threats, and vulnerability data. The results of the cybersecurity risk assessment activities allow the organization to develop its target profile. Next, they have to create a target profile. In accordance with the threats to the organization and critical infrastructure security goals, the targeted profile outlines the key category and subcategory outcomes, as well as the cybersecurity risk management standards, tools, methods, guidelines that will provide protection against cybersecurity threats. Then we have to determine, analyze, and prioritize gaps. The organization compares the current profile and the target profile to identify gaps. It develops a prioritized action plan to close those gaps in order to accomplish the results specified in the target profile. This plan is based on mission drivers and cost benefit analysis and a knowledge of risks. The company then decides what risks are required to fill the gaps. Lastly, the organization must implement an action plan. After deciding what steps to take in response to any gaps that were found in the previous stage, the organization compares its current cybersecurity procedures to the targeted profile. The procedures can be repeated by an organization as often as necessary to evaluate and enhance its cybersecurity. Lastly, of the framework alignment, we're going to pit all of the information that we know about Nook against the framework itself. As we see and identify, we have intellectual property, so that's their bread and butter. Software development locations, remote and on-premise, network infrastructure, switches, routers, and servers, organizational issued remote computers, servers, and software engineers, laptops and workstations, organization office equipment, executive staff, and HR. To protect, implement access control, such as principle of least privilege. They have to protect data security by using encryption to protect their data at rest and data in motion, such as BitLocker and VPNs. Information protection. Ensure all components, application software are up to date and backed up. Make sure that their antivirus and anti-malware patching and definitions are up to date. Lastly, the human factor. We have to ensure that cybersecurity training is being implemented and enforced. To detect, we use the audit logs to detect anomalies in events and react appropriately. We have to optimize our firewall rules and as well as our IDSs and IPS to detection processes. Physical environment is monitored to detect potential cyber security events. And in the response, to maintain systems, application backup on site and off, communications, maintain essential personnel contact lists, response plan executed. Employees perform their roles and duties during and after an incident. Lastly, under response, we have analysis. Notifications from detection systems are investigated, the impact of the incident is understood, and forensics are performed. Under recovery, communicate. We have to communicate with all stakeholders of incidents affecting the organization. Implement. Next, we have to implement the disaster recovery plan. Ensure lessons learned are documented. Next, we will the recovery planning. Public relations are managed. Yes, are managed, and our reputation is repaired after the incident. We have to next slide is the identification of specific regulatory requirements that the organization must comply with. Autonomous vehicle. Currently in Arizona, there are no federal or state laws uh, or regulations that can be applied to autonomous vehicles, nor are there any laws or regulations applied to autonomous vehicles throughout the United States. However, there are voluntary guidelines. As we can see here, we have the NHTSA Automated Driving System 2 that was created in September of 2017, the Automated Driving System 3 that was created in August 2018, the Automated Driving System 4, which was created in January of 2020. Then we have the cybersecurity best practices for safety and modern vehicles. And lastly, the ISO SAE 21434 in 2021, road vehicles cybersecurity engineering. As we can see, the automated driving system uh, 2, it was called a Vision for Safety. In September, the United States Department of Transportation provided voluntary guidance to industry as well as technical assistance and best practices to states, offering a path forward for safe testing and integration of automated driving systems. In 2018 of October, preparing for the future is called. Uh, the implementation of what's called Preparing for the Future of Transportation. Automated Vehicles 3 was introduced, guiding principles for automated vehicles, innovation for all surface transportation modes, and described the, the Department of Transportation strategy to address existing barriers to potential safety and benefit progress. And January 2020, uh, automated vehicle version 4 was introduced, and it builds on these efforts by presenting a unified posture to inform collaborative efforts in the automated vehicle for stakeholders and outlines past and current federal government efforts to ensure the United States and the world in leads the world in automated vehicle technology. Next, we're asked to identify and prioritize organizational efforts and business needs. Under the organizational efforts, NOOC must improve its security. NOOC experienced several security incidents, including incidents that involved social engineering attacks in the form of phishing, spear phishing, and insider threat attacks. Security awareness training could help mitigate these incidents. Next, the NOOC enterprise network and infrastructure systems need to be upgraded. Antiquated network equipment should be upgraded to industry standards. Managed gigabit switches that produce your customer support team's effectiveness they will increase the efforts for your customer support team. Recent switches come with the capability of IEEE 802.1x user authentication support that diagnostics that can locate Ethernet connection faults and the ability to rapidly identify which ports are active and in use. Next, Nook's research and development. They must complete the autonomous software. Nook's goal is to achieve this, and the company's stockholders hope that it's successful. The business needs. Nook must segregate their networks. The corporate and developers network must be segmented. This improves cybersecurity and limiting how far a malicious attack spreads by confining the attack to one segment. Next, Nook must protect its intellectual property. Once again, this is their bread and butter. Additional security is warranted to mitigate attacks. Lastly, Nook's software development environment. Nook must be aware of every employee or entity connecting to the network. With Nook's computer scientists, software engineers, and program managers working remotely, access controls must be employed. VPNs and or VPNs for remote users and computer scanning must be implemented. Next, we have to identify individual elements of cybersecurity, such as threats and vulnerabilities, and how to manage them. My number one will always be insider threats. The human factor has and always will be the bane of cybersecurity. Whether it's advertently or inadvertently, employees, partners, and contractors are the reason for cyber attacks. Insider threats are worse. They have access to sensitive materials and can perform malicious acts such as selling trade secrets, personal identifiable information, or sabotaging the organization because they are disgruntled. Inadvertently, they can be the catalyst of an attack. Simply not following organizational policies or procedures can lead to compromise. Cybersecurity awareness training program will provide employees, including the C-suite, training on current threats and vulnerabilities. Next, we have external entities, contractors, vendors, partners, and researchers at universities. These entities must not only maintain the cybersecurity posture of Nook, but Nook must be able to identify a user based on their credentials, then authorize the appropriate level of access once they are authenticated. Since Nook has a laid back environment, they are more susceptible to cyber attacks. Implementing the principle of least cost would greatly decrease the chances of an attack. Lastly, corporate espionage. Nook is about to present a software and technology that will revolutionize driverless vehicles. Because of this, Nook is a primary target for threat actors to steal Nook's proprietary information, trade secrets, or intellectual property and sell or give it to another organization. The primary intent behind corporate espionage is to use the acquired information to gain a competitive advantage. Next, we are to describe how the organization incorporates privacy principles as related to data collection, disclosure, and retention. Nook collects employee, contractor, partner, university personnel information and stores it on organizational servers. Now, this information consists of names, addresses, social security numbers, email addresses, family members, credit card information, banking information, sex, ethnicity, and religion. Nook will also follow the Privacy Act and best practices for data collection. Code of Fair Information Practices. That entails the type of data that will be collected. Again, names, addresses, social security numbers, email addresses, family members, credit card information, banking information, sex, ethnicity, and religion. Employers' data collection. Employers are allowed to collect data such as employment eligibility verification information, such as your social security number, job applications, pay details, such as direct deposit information, and payment history. Retrievability. What access will employees have to their information and how will it be used? And retention and disposal. NOOC will retain the data on record for 3 years after termination, whether the employee quits, is fired, or retires. Lastly, we are to describe the impact of legal and regulatory standards on a given system. Currently, there are no effects on Linux systems because there are no federal or state regulations that pertain to autonomous vehicle design. However, in August of 2022, members of the United States House of Representatives launched a bipartisan effort to help revive legislation efforts to boost self-driving vehicles. According to the National Highway Traffic Safety Administration, NHTSA, General Motors and Ford Motors requested permission to deploy the maximum number of self-driving cars, 2,500 per year, without human control such as steering wheels and brake pedals. The United States Department of Transportation and the NHTSA guidelines will definitely transform into laws as the autonomous car industry continues to flourish. This will impose legal and regulatory requirements on suppliers of automated vehicle technology like NOOC. Thank you for listening. Have a great day. These are the references that were used to gather the information in this presentation.